Okay, so we have a cane in this case.
Yeah, this is very interesting. After the Battle of Lake Erie, of course, the Rush-Bagot Agreement with the British banned warships on the Great Lakes. These ships had been basically made for one battle, and after the war, most of them were sold for commercial purposes. The Niagara and the Lawrence, the American brigs, the Detroit and the Queen Charlotte, the largest British ships, were taken to Erie, Pennsylvania, where the American fleet had been built, and they were sunk in the harbor. Now, in the 1830s, the ships were raised, and the Detroit and the Queen Charlotte were sold for commercial purposes. The Queen Charlotte served about 8 years. Eventually, the Detroit was sold to various hotel owners at Niagara Falls, and they advertised that they would run the Detroit over Niagara Falls, which drew huge crowds. Unfortunately, it caught on a rock, and it didn't make it over the falls. The interesting thing is, every time these ships were raised, people would get souvenirs. So in this exhibit, here we have a cane, and this cane was presented by Daniel Dobbins, who was the man who built initiated the building of the ships at Erie. There are many, many, many of these canes that were made. They come on the market frequently. You have all kinds. There's one right now on eBay, a big chunk of the ship.
What do they want for this stuff?
Well, usually the canes, they go around $2,500.
So do they look like this? Do they have the...
Each one is different. I have others that are of a different style.
Okay, what does this say on here?
This says, I have to take a quick look to see what panel you're looking at. It says,
looks like F.
wood from the flagship Lawrence.
Oh, okay.
Now look at this. Now here's what happened eventually. In this exhibit, I have a picture frame made from the Lawrence. We have a chair made from the Niagara. This is a little souvenir. In 1876, they raised the Lawrence, cut it up, and shipped it to the Philadelphia Centennial exhibition, and they sold plugs out of the hull to raise funds. It wasn't a popular exhibit, and the building storing the Lawrence caught fire, and it burned up. The Niagara, of course, was raised in 1913 and rebuilt. It's been rebuilt three times. Now it, of course, sails the Great Lakes with very little left. The interesting thing about this, the theme of this exhibit would be these two cases is, how did we commemorate the Battle of Lake Erie? And of course, the Centennial celebration was huge. And back then, before internet and television and youth soccer leagues, these celebrations were a big deal, much bigger than they are today. If you look at the one snuff box there, that's with the Battle of Lake Erie on it, by the 1820s, all the, in prints and in the decorative arts, really Americans took great pride in those American heroes like Oliver Hester Perry or Andrew.
He probably could have become the president.
Well, he was certainly idolized.
Yes.
Of course, after the Battle of Lake Erie, the second Battle of Lake Erie started, and that was between him and his second in command, and Jesse Elliott, and it was very vituperative. People were killed in duels. There was a pamphlet war. It's a subject of its own. Okay, this is interesting over here, I think. This right here, I think this is really fun.
So what have we got? The handwritten piece
This
over
is
here?
and Civil War diaries are fairly common, but very rare to find one from the War of 1812. This is the only one I own. It's Captain Joseph Johnson's diary, and he was called up. Basically, we relied on militia in the War of 1812. And the thought is we could simply walk into Canada, take it, and have a bargaining chip with the British. We were sort of banking on Napoleon taking care of things over there. This diary entry is very interesting. Okay, I think because on this day they were in Granville, Ohio, when they got the word that Detroit had been surrendered by Hull. And the passage for August 31st reads, "We marched 8 miles, and in the morning before we started, we had General Hull's image drawn, and one round for 10 or 12 at him, then charged bayonet on him, and then tomahawked and burnt him and pitched.
Wow.
He was later in Tupper's campaign to the Rapids, so it's an interesting diary. This